This lesson is on topic 3, unit 1, aquatic biomes. There's a lot of little details in here that I need to point out. So let's start with a quick review. What is a biome? On land, we refer to it as a region of the globe that shares similar characteristics, our temperature, precipitation, and plant or animal communities. That's that climatogram that we talked about. A biome in the water talks about light availability, depth, temperature, and currents and tides. So the major aquatic biomes, freshwater streams and river. And we classify this by looking at the lotic system, which can be divided into 3 zones. So we can start with the source zone, and that's where it originates. So it's shallow, cold, clear, flat, fast-flowing stream. It has high DO, and we're going to use that abbreviation a lot. It refers to dissolved oxygen. There's more oxygen in water that is cold and quickly moving, and that's an important factor for fish and other living organisms in the water. It has low nutrient levels, so low net primary productivity. That transition zone in the middle, there's a wider stream bed, there's warmer water, slower stream velocity, which means there's going to be lower dissolved oxygen because that water is a little bit warmer and it's moving slower, but more chances for plants to grow, more net primary productivity. And then we have the floodplain zone. It's the wide stream bed, the warmest temperature, high turbidity, which is the amount of how well you can see into the water. It's not as clear. Least dissolved oxygen in that part, and then the highest net primary productivity. The system falls within a watershed, and we also can call that a drainage basin, which is an area of land that drains runoff, sediments, and dissolved substances into a stream, river, or wetland. So the drainage basin is where that is all headed to. We also have freshwater ponds and lakes, and we use the lentic system. We have oleotrophic, which is deep, steep-sided banks and fed by ice or snowmelt, low nutrients, low net primary productivity. And then we have eutrophic, which is shallow, high turbidity, can't really see down into there, high nutrients, which means there's higher net primary productivity. More things are growing there. And if we look at this lake, we have different zones. So we have the littoral zone, lots of light, which reaches the bottom. There's high net primary productivity. Remember, you need light in order for plants to grow. Lots of biodiversity in this area and rooted plants into the side there. The limnetic zone is in the middle. There's lots of light, there's low nutrient levels, and it has to be free-floating plants. So this is where your algae is located because it can't anchor itself. Then we have the profundal zone, which is sort of below that limnetic zone. Low light and low net primary productivity. Low light is going to lead to that low productivity. And then we have the benthic zone. That's the bottom. No light, lots of nutrients, but low dissolved oxygen. So you have nutrients down there, but not a lot of oxygen. Low productivity, that's because of the light. Mostly decomposers live here. Refer to the bottom sediment layer of a body of water. If a pond or lake is super shallow, it may not have a true no lighted benthic zone because that bottom can end up being high enough so that the light can reach all the way to the bottom. But that's only in really shallow ponds or lakes. Freshwater inland wetlands, so they include marshes, swamps, prairie, potholes, and floodplains. Areas of land covered in water year-round or seasonally. It's highly productive due to the high nutrient levels and sunlight, and it's a critically important habitat, both for storing water and for filtering water. Services provided by these inland wetlands is that they filter toxic water, like I just mentioned. They reduce flooding and absorb storm runoff. They sustain stream flow in dry seasons. They recharge groundwater supplies, meaning they allow water to percolate down into the groundwater. They maintain biodiversity by providing habitat, and they provide recreation. They also supply natural products. We have marine, so we have open ocean. Most of the planet is covered in salt water. Several major biomes exist in the ocean, and the ocean itself can be divided into 5 main zones. And it's important for us to understand some of these zones. We have the intertidal zone, and that's where the tides change. So sometimes that's in water and sometimes that's out of water. There's lots of nutrients there. There's high biodiversity in that area. We have coastal, which is right when you're just in that shallow water. It's sort of that same as that littoral zone. It's harsh conditions, it's lower biodiversity. We have this euphotic zone, which is same as the limnetic zone in a pond. It's where the light can reach. Lots of sun, but there's low nutrient levels. Things can't anchor themselves. Remember, this is where the algae was. And so light can penetrate down, not super deep. It's just the top area there. The basal zone is the same as the profundal zone. So we have that low light again and low net primary productivity. And then we have the abyssal zone, which is the same as the benthic zone. It's the bottom. There's no light. There's little to no productivity down at the bottom of the ocean. We can also refer to that top part as the photic zone, because anywhere that light reaches, we'll use that word photic. Think of like a photon. And then aphotic zone is anywhere that light cannot reach. For marine, we also have estuaries and salt marshes. Some of the most biodiverse biomes on Earth. They have high nutrient levels plus sunlight, and so they have very high net primary productivity. Lots of green in that picture that you can see. And areas where salt and freshwater meet each other are referred to as brackish water. It also includes mangrove forests. The dominant species there are mangrove trees, which are adapted to living in salt water and create important breakwater for storms. It helps stop some of that storm surge that comes in. It's a critical habitat for marine species. In the marine, we also have this intertidal zone that we mentioned. This is that zone right where the waves hit. It's the narrow band along coastlines between the high and low tide marks. And so you need some really adaptive organisms to live there. The habitat varies from sandy, think of the beach along the Jersey Shore, to rocky, I think of Maine. It's challenging for species to survive in because they have exposure to elements at low tide. They have rolling surf, and they have to be highly specialized species to live there. It's also high in predation because you're subject to both aquatic and terrestrial predators. In marine environments, we also have coral reefs. They're in warm and shallow seas. The water is low in nutrient content. And coral animal is a symbiote. Just to explain that, each coral is made of thousands of polyps. A polyp is made of a mouth and filled with symbiotic algae. Algae provides nutrients during the day. Mouth consumes the drifting food at night. Just to give you another example of symbiosis in an aquatic environment. Very high net primary productivity, which is why that water is low in nutrient content. Think of the rainforest. The soil is low in nutrients because all the nutrients are in all the life that's there. But then the rainforest is also very high in biodiversity, and so is the coral reef. So to recap, major factors include light availability, the water depth, water temperature, the dissolved oxygen content, which remember is higher in colder water and faster moving water, and then the nutrient availability. Lakes and ponds come in two types and are divided into 4 zones. Streams and rivers are divided into 3 zones, and the ocean environment is divided into 5 zones and shares similarities with lakes and ponds. Estuaries are some of the most productive and biodiverse biomes on Earth.